Jeff Bezos had a quote that has always stuck with me. He said, and this was actually a tiny little anecdote, but I think about this probably once a week. He was talking to someone in a hallway 24 hours after executives made a decision. He said, "You know what? I changed my mind. We should go with option number 2, not option number 1." And the person said, "We had 34 executives all just agree and start enacting option 1." And he said, "I know. I thought about it last night, and I think it's option 2. And let's start spinning the engines in that direction." And he later reflected on that he was kind of given this pushback that he was changing his mind, but he said his commitment as a CEO his commitment is to truth, not to consistency. And that's such a interesting contrast of those two and how much they often do contrast. I had never heard that comparison, but it's so often the case that when you do choose truth, it is very inconsistent with what you previously thought or what plan you had previously put in place. And it is a fearful thing to choose truth.
Yeah. One of my favorite videos I've been playing for clients lately it comes from the Funny or Die brand. Yeah. And it's a scene of a couple in like the 1950s, and the wife is there cooking at the stove, and she's serving her husband steak and eggs and bread. And some guy jumps into the scene. He goes, "I'm from the future. You shouldn't eat those eggs." And he's like, "Eggs are bad for you." So she's like, "Oh, honey, we've got to get rid of those eggs." And then he keeps popping back in every 5, like from the future. "Okay, you can eat the eggs, but now it's only the whites, and then, well, now you can't eat the yolks. It turns out maybe cholesterol isn't such a thing, but don't eat the steak, and then it's like, well, no, you can eat the steak, but the bread." And it's like, that's science, supposedly, always changing its mind. So there's this way everybody gets so righteous about how we're supposed to eat. And then we find out, 10 years later, maybe that's not so true.
Right.
And so can we hold everything like, what's the news stories now? Whatever the current trends are in food, there's a difference.
Fasting. Everybody should be fasting, right?
Yes. Right. And then we might find out in 5 years, fasting's actually not so good for the heart. We found out there's some problems with fasting. So we could go at it with, "I've got to fast. It's the right way." Or I don't know. I mean, some people are saying fasting might be helpful. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Like, I'll try it out and see, or I'll hold it a little more lightly. People can get really religious about, the way things ought to be, because that's the way. And they can't open up to, well, maybe there's another perspective here.
Yeah.
So I've been playing that video for clients just to show how righteous the world can get and how funny it is when you look back on it and see like, oh, I guess we don't know everything.
That's brilliant. And that's comedy. That's the truth in a way that you would have never thought to articulate it of a family, instead of us getting these news stories every 3 years and be like, oh, there's new science. They're getting them all within minutes, and how disorienting that is. But that, in many ways, that is truth. It's pretty disorienting, and fearful to go into what basically Jeff Bezos was saying of the commitment is to truth, and new information often will be disorienting, but that's got to be the commitment.